You know what Greg does to me? This is a true story. We could leave this in here. He's always like, "I better watch my tires because one of these days I'm gonna come out, my tires gonna be slashed because Wiggett wants my job." And then I kind of hurt his feelings. I said, "I don't want your job." I said, "You have to like talk all the time." I said, "My job right now, I sit there and do absolutely nothing and get paid for it." Hi, this is Nick Wiget, public address announcer and production worker all around Columbus and Cincinnati, Ohio. And you are listening to Into the Stands with Dave Fetzer.
All right, how you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing well, Dave. How are you?
Not too bad. So I did start looking through your resume a little bit. I was told by another buddy of mine who does all kinds of athletic events that your resume makes his fit on a post-it note. So I'm just going to start out by saying, why don't you give us a bit of background on who you are and what it is that you do?
All right, so here goes the entire episode with my resume. The resume is long because I've had a lot of different positions in a lot of different places, and I think a lot of folks that work in our line of work can tell you that it's when you work part time, which I do for the most part everywhere, you start to find that one thing begets another. So, long story short, I am a public address announcer, but I also do a lot of work behind the scenes in production as well, and that's how I've been able to amass as many different positions in different places. Because let's say you work one season in the summertime working baseball for, let's say, the Columbus Clippers, like I do, and more than half of the crew members there also work for the Columbus Blue Jackets during that season. So inevitably, someone says, "Hey, if you're going to work over here with us and do stuff here in the summer, do you have any interest in working hockey in the winter?" And so that's how, over the course of probably about the last 10 to 15 years now, my resume has just exploded, and I put everything on there. Long story short, I'm a former college professor, and if you know anything about what college professors do with their resumes, they call them curriculum vitas. And on their curriculum vita, you include like every lecture you've ever given and every detail of every class you've ever taught. And so some of these professional resumes, or CVs as they call them, they're like 30 and 40 pages. Well, I've
Yeah.
tried not to do that with my resume when it comes to sports work, but, man, when you get one cool job somewhere and you feel like you wanna share that with everybody, especially when you're applying for other stuff, you go like, "Well,
100%.
I've worked every sport, and I've worked for almost every team at this point," and so it becomes one of those things where they see that, and yes, someone looks at it and goes, "Whoa, man, that's a lot of stuff." But if you really think about it, it's just working with the same people in a lot of different places.
Hmm. Yeah. And I get that all the time where people, how do you have time to breathe? It's like, well, a lot of it kind of runs together, and
Mhm.
it's the only thing that changes is, what sport you're working.
Well,
So
and or,
I get it.
teams go on the road for a week, and that's your
Yeah.
break. And then other
Yeah.
times when everybody's home at once, some weeks I have, maybe a gig or 2. Other weeks I have 14 things in 5 days or something like that, and you just try to make
Mhm.
sure you don't double book yourself or, like, try to overwork or anything like that. But you know what? It's fun going from one thing to the next, and I think the variety, that I get to experience working in so many different, control rooms and with different sports and different people, that's what keeps it fresh and fun.
Absolutely. And it was like this weekend for me. I was They had a charity classic softball tournament, fall ball at Ohio State, and Saturday I had 5 games, and then Sunday I had to work volleyball in the morning, and then I had to shoot right over to the softball field to work those. And it's like it's a whirlwind, but I wouldn't be doing anything else.
Right, and
So
200 yards away, I'm announcing women's soccer. So it's
yeah, yep,
like, "Oh, they're
absolutely,
over
yeah.
at the softball field doing something today." Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So every
Yeah,
all
it's
hands on deck.
absolutely. So what was your first PA gig, or how did you get into doing that?
Okay, that's an interesting story because I never had any particular interest in doing sports work in general, like including public address.
Really?
When I went to college, I had so many different majors. I really went to college as like I'm going to go to college and let's see what happens, right? And so finally,
General studies.
yeah, exactly. I was pre-pharmacy, I was pre-law, I was English, I was history because I had a history professor that I really liked, and I thought, well, I could teach
Yeah.
history. This is kind of fun. But all of it came down to basically like I like the lectures and I like people talking and I like the idea of doing that sort of stuff. And I thought, well, I have like a little audience, you know? And
Mhm.
for me, teaching in a classroom was always like hosting your own like talk show. And from the time I was a little kid, I loved talk shows. I loved media, I loved radio. I would listen to countdown shows incessantly. I'd put them together on cassettes and make my parents listen to them on the way to my grandparents' house. And so inevitably, it got to the point where I was a mobile DJ by the time I was 12 years old. And I did that all throughout high school and then into college, but I never gave any thought to it being like something I would pursue as a career. I always thought, well, that'll be my side gig, and if I want to do that on the weekends or whatever, and DJ a wedding or a class reunion or a homecoming dance or whatever, I can do that. And then when I got to college, I was finally convinced by a couple advisors. They're like, "You seem like the type of person that wants to work in media. Do you want to do radio or TV?" And I said, "Well, radio would be great, except I know there's no money in it, and the hours stink and everything, and I don't know." Well, you know what? Just go and major in communication and go from there because it's very broad. And if you decide you want to do that, you can do that, or you can go do something else. And I go, well, that's okay. I'll do that. So finally, I settled on communication, and it wasn't too long after I started doing that that I started working in radio, commercial radio in my hometown, and was still DJing and still announcing stuff kind of on the side. And soccer coach approached me at a small Division 3 school that I was going to and says, "Hey, do you ever do any public address announcing?" And I, no, not really. And he goes, "Well, nobody wants to come announce our soccer matches, and I can't get people to show up and do it, and it's really important to our team or whatever." And I go, "Yeah, okay." And so I don't know, I kind of took the reins and ran with it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it big. So I, put together sound effects and music and all the like everything I thought I could do with the limited whatever I had there to make this like a big deal. And so I showed up to do a couple soccer matches and I had like, starting lineup music, I had goal music, I'd scripted out all the introductions, I'd scripted out everything from corner kicks to like halftime stuff. Like I was producing this entire game, and they were
Yeah.
like, "You're into this? Like, this is fun for you?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
kind of digging this.
exactly.
I think I like this." And one thing kind of led to another, to the point where I just started doing on occasion at the college. I did a lot of soccer, which just sounds odd because I never played soccer all that much growing up. I mean, I played like YMCA, little like rec league soccer and stuff, but I got good at it. And after I graduated, a few years later, I'd always been close to some of the other athletes and stuff at the college, and I get this phone call from one of my friends there. She says, "Hey, there's a minor league soccer team starting in Cincinnati." And I said, "Yeah, I've heard of it." And she goes, "They're called the Cincinnati Kings, and they would like to have a PA announcer, and they're in desperate need of one. The guy that they thought they had lined up is not coming tonight." And this is like 2:30 in the afternoon or so. And she goes, "The
Mhm.
general manager will call you in a few minutes with all the details if you can come down and do it." So I talked to him, and sure enough, I went down and I wrote out everything just on like notebook paper or whatever, and just threw it together really quickly. And we did a friendly that night between the Kings and Xavier University soccer team at Xavier University. And when I got done, the general manager goes, "You're hired." He goes, "That was great, love it." He says, how many can you do
Awesome.
all the games?" And I said, "Well, I've got one game I can't make because I'm DJing a wedding." I was still DJing at the time, right? Like still with all my
Mhm.
equipment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he threw
Yeah.
out a figure. He says, "How about if I pay you this much per game?" And blah 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 blah. And I go, "Man, that's almost as much as I'm making DJing." And I go, "All I have to bring is a laptop and maybe a microphone." "Yeah, man, you got
Mhm.
yourself a guy." And he says, "Cool." He says, "We have another friendly coming up this next week or whatever against the Columbus Crew." And I was like, "Wow, first game, real game is going to be
Yeah.
against a major league soccer side. Love it."
We're just jumping right into
Jump
it.
right into it, man. Right. So, so I was excited about that and did that for several years. But I was still intent on teaching college. Like I kept thinking to myself, like, this is a backup thing. This is not a real gig or whatever, or at least the odds of making this a full time job is not going to be likely. So I'm still going to have to do something else. So I was going to teach communication classes, and I did on and off for 20 years. But I had to go get a master's, and I did that at University of Dayton. Had to get a PhD, and went to Bowling Green State University after that. The whole time during the summers, though, I would come back and announce soccer and do other little just sports jobs. And so at any rate, I was teaching at Wright State after I got done at Bowling Green, and I'd become familiar with the Dayton Dragons baseball team, and I knew they'd had a lot of success in the
Mhm.
minors up there in Dayton. And one of my
Yeah.
students asked me if I wanted to work some with them, and this was 2011, I guess, so a couple years after I'd left BG. And he says, "Do you have any interest in doing more sports work?" And I go, "Yeah." And so I started working with them, and then the ball really started rolling. I think that opportunity to work with them and for them to have the notoriety they've had for their sellout streak and as much fanfare as they've gotten for Dayton and for that surrounding area. Next thing you know, I'm hired by the Harlem Globetrotters. I'm on the road announcing all the time. Did that for the better part of 3 seasons. I come home, I leave the Globetrotters, and 2 months later, I'm working for the Cincinnati Reds as a ballpark DJ. I'm playing all the walk-up songs for all my favorite baseball players, and it's just,
Yeah.
and it just kind of keeps going. And then one thing leads to another, like I said at the beginning of this, where it's okay, you work here in the summer, can you do this somewhere else? Or a friend calls and says, "Can you come work for the Columbus Clippers?" Yeah, I can do that. I can do the same thing there that I do in Cincinnati. Then it's Blue Jackets. Then it's every college in the area. And like you said, now I mean, I stay busy all year long. 2 years ago, I decided that I wasn't going to teach college anymore. I was only going to do sports work. And
That's
I mean,
the
I've got
dream.
a young son at home, and I thought, well, I can make this work. I'll stay at home all day with Will, and then my wife can go teach college. She'll come home, then I go do all the announcing and or production work. And here we are, over 2 years into it, and I think last year I had 280 some gigs over the course of the year, and this year I'm on pace to do even more than that. So it's just a matter of trying to make sure I don't have to be in two places at once. There's a
That's
really
the
long
dream
answer
come.
to your very short question, Dave. Sorry.
I love it. I mean, that's what it's about. That's the dream come true, though.
And
I
it's
mean,
one of those things where and once you get in one place, this is the way it was described to me one time. You show up and you seem to care and you're nice to people.
Mhm.
Those that's it right there. That's the formula for success in this kind of work. You don't have to be the most talented, you don't have to have the best voice, you don't have to have whatever. But if you're going to show up and you're going to do it consistently, I say this a lot about PA announcing in particular. I think there's a lot of folks out there that see what we do and they go, you know, man, I'd love to be the announcer for that team. I don't know. Do you still want to be the announcer for that team like 80 times a year? Or do you want to do it on
Yeah,
holidays? Do you want to do it on weekends? Do you want to do it at night when everyone else is off work? There's other things to it. If the answer is yes, and you're willing to do that for a number of years, then cool, it's for you. But if you get
and
there and get the job and you go, well, wait a minute, I have to work on like, Black Friday. I have to work on the 4th of July. I have to work on maybe Christmas Day. With the Globetrotters, I left to go to work on Christmas Day. So there's definitely drawbacks to it, but the perks are it's a
yeah.
lot of fun, right? And it's something that um, I think a lot of people really want to do. And it's you be around the things that you like all the time and get to enjoy things that people pay to come watch, and we get paid to watch them. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, I say that to my friends all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
full disclosure, I am a Michigan guy, but
Oh,
like,
sure.
I get paid to watch Ohio State football. Like, people are literally selling tickets to these games for $1,000 a piece,
Right.
and I get paid to have one of the best seats in the house that's heated in November.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, that too, by the way.
But,
I'm in
that's
a press
another nice little
box while
perk
everyone
to
else
it.
yeah, I just had
Yeah.
food or something that was catered or whatever. I've got
Oh, yeah.
private
Yeah.
bathrooms. I mean, everything about it, right? And you go, "This is pretty cushy compared to what it could be." Hey, and to your point,
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter what you're a fan of or what you're not a fan of when it comes to this line of work too. I always say, um, you're a fan of whoever pays you, number 1.
Yep.
But
Yep.
also, every place that I've ever worked, I have this rationale in the back of my head that there are people that are big fans of that product or of that team or whatever, and I get why. It's not just geographical stuff. Maybe it's family history or something like that. There's some little kid out there that's rooting really hard for that other team, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking for them when they don't perform or something like that. So people always
Yep.
ask me, "You're the announcer for the Bengals. Oh, do you hate the Browns and the Steelers and the Ravens?" No.
Yeah.
Same with the Reds when I worked there. Oh, you must really dislike the Cardinals. No, I don't dislike the Cardinals. Same with Ohio State and Michigan, man. If they called and they said, "Hey, Carl wants to take a day off. Do you want to come announce a game in the big house?" The answer is yes. You know?
I'll be
Yeah,
there.
that'd be
Yeah,
cool. That'd be very cool, like
absolutely.
yeah.
And not to like take take over from your episode here, but like to your point, what you said is 100% true. And I always got a hard time from a lot of my friends because I started out working at the University of Akron, working games. And, we have a beautiful stadium, gorgeous facilities. But I think in the time during the time I was in college, we won 3 games in 3 years. It was rough go. We had no fans in the stadium.
Mhm.
We're on ESPN Plus, so nobody's watching on TV unless you're a diehard Akron fan. And I was driving from Columbus to Akron for all their home games. And I had people telling me, "Why would you do that? Like, what's the point of doing that?" And to your point, there's always in the stadium, there's always at least one person who is bringing their kid or their grandkid to their first game or something like that. And just knowing that if I were to tell them, no, I'm not going to do it, I'm done. Which unfortunately I did tell Akron that because it was getting to be too much
Well,
for
yeah,
the
but
for
that
the
was just
drive up
because
there and all
yeah.
that. But they would replace me in a heartbeat, and I know that. And the same thing would happen at Ohio State or wherever I am. But knowing that I trust myself more than I trust anybody else to make sure that that game goes off without a hitch and that everything's right
Yeah.
for that reason. And I got to take my 4-year-old nephew to his first Michigan game last weekend, and
Mhm.
it was that same thing where it's the cool experience of getting to take him there. And there's all these people that work behind the scenes that nobody talks about, nobody hears from, and that's what the show's about here. Um, because without those people, it's not going to happen.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's
There's a whole
they,
cast of
th- will they
characters that
find
yeah, absolutely.
will they find somebody else? Absolutely. Like you said, if Carl took a day off and they called you, you'd show up in a heartbeat. But I can
Well, it
tell you right
depends on
now
what
that
the
I know that.
pay is. I mean, it's a long drive, I'm just saying up there, like,
Yeah, yeah, but long story
yeah,
short, they would find somebody to do
they
the
would find
job. It's
somebody
just
to do the job, correct.
a matter of I trust myself more than anybody else,
Well, and
you
the
know?
thing about it is too, it's one of those things where, man, like I said, I traveled so much doing stuff on the road with the Globetrotters in particular that you go from city to city and area to area, and you see all the different team logos and stuff. And I've always been a fan of traveling anyway and going to different stadiums and
Yeah.
experiencing what their game day production is like. I mean, I'm not critical of it because I know how tough it is. But I do like to
Mhm.
go and kind of swipe like good ideas and stuff. If I hear somebody say something a certain
Absolutely.
way, or if I see something on a video board and I go, man, that's a good idea. I don't know why we didn't think of that. I mean, I love that sort of stuff. So, I become a fan of that team for the day, if nothing else, and just
Yeah,
enjoy the environment. Like I think that's part of the reason we go to sporting events. It's just entertainment in the end.
yeah,
It's not life nor death. It's just for fun. It's the way we pass our time and have ways of interacting with our family and friends about certain things, and sharing those moments together. Like you said, taking your nephew to the game, that's a lifelong memory for both of you guys. Like,
yeah,
can you remember
yep,
going to that game and how big it was and how cool it was to see the band and how it was cool to see the teams come out and all that sort of stuff?
mhm,
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's all about, and for me,
yeah,
I'm all about spectacle too. So,
oh, yeah,
as far as being a part of production work and stuff like that, I like the idea that if I'm not going to announce, which there are plenty of things I just as soon not announce, if I can be a part of it in a different way by pushing a button in a control room or by helping someone else do something or whatever, I'm game for that too. And again, that's how I've turned it into a full-time job because most of the PA announcing jobs out there are part-time at best,
yeah,
and,
yep,
you're not breaking the bank when it comes to it. There's some that are more advantageous than others when it comes to pay, and I'm always
oh, yeah,
very aware of that too and trying to prioritize, like, okay, I'm dedicated to this team a little more because they've hired me a lot more or whatever.
I mean, it's a business,
It's a
it is.
business, yeah, and so, you treat it like such, but, you're always happy to see your home teams do well, but, back to the point that you can't cry when they don't. You
Yeah,
know? It
yeah,
it is what it
and
is, man, we don't
especially with college,
yeah,
it's working college sports has almost ruined it for me because you realize, they're kids that have to go to class on Monday.
yep.
So, like, it almost ruins it in a way, but it is what it is.
I'm getting
Um,
older too, and I look down on the field and I go, "Oh, man, that kid, I technically could be his father, like, I'm twice his age or twice her
Yeah.
age or whatever, you know. And I forget that sometimes because being around it has kept me young at heart, like in my mind. So like I
Yeah.
think, oh, you know, we're all kind of in the same cohort of age, right? No, wait a minute, they're half my age now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so and
Yeah.
so's kid or whatever out
It's
there on the field, which has happened to me a couple of times already, and every time it hits me. I was announcing a softball game for Ohio State last year, and one of my friends from college came up to the booth, and she's like, "Oh, I heard you up here announcing. See down there, that's my husband's niece that she plays on the team or whatever." And I go, "That can't be right because we're not that old."
yeah.
But I'm like, "Oh, that's about
Yeah.
right." So,
Yeah. Um, so we kind of covered your resume a little bit, and like you said, you do kind of a mix of production and PA work.
hmm
Um, as far as the PA work goes, I know you do MLS soccer for FC Columbus or Columbus FC or Cincinnati. Sorry.
oh yeah,
Let me I,
don't get that
let
confused,
me.
Dave. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
we're oh, I'm a yeah. Being a crew fan,
No, you're
can't
fine. And hey,
believe
I've
being
got
a
nothing
crew
against
fan
the
too.
crew either. Let me say that I have a lot of friends that work there. Um,
Oh yeah,
they're good folks. And they haven't called
but
yet, even though I asked them. I said, well, if you guys need something, I could probably do that too.
100%.
Yeah,
But
well, I'll give you a quick list. Okay. Public address
yeah,
announcer for the Bengals. There are two of us. It's me and Tom Kender, who's been there for a number of years. Tom calls most of the plays and all that sort of stuff. I do all the hype and I do all the pregame and halftime and everything else. So I
gotcha.
work for the Bengals doing that. Then I am the PA announcer for FC Cincinnati, the winners of the Supporters Shield, by the way, this year in Major League Soccer, which means we have the best record in all Major League Soccer. Tomorrow night is the big celebration that'll date this
That'll be
episode
fun.
a little bit. But yeah,
That's all right.
we have a big celebration coming up for that. So it's very exciting because there's a great example. Our team 2 years ago and 3 years ago, worst team in the history of Major League Soccer when we joined the league. And last year we made the playoffs for the first time. This year, first place all the way, and it's very exciting. So
That's awesome.
that'll be a really big buzz down there. I do PA announcing for the University of Cincinnati, several different sports. Also do production work as well. So if you come to a men's basketball game, you'll hear me on the PA. If you come to a football game this season, which we just joined the Big 12, I run
Yep.
audio. So I'm the one controlling the audio at Nippert Stadium and other tasks too when asked. I do a number of other sports there too whenever they ask me to. University of Dayton, I do public address announcing for a lot of different sports. Again, on a part time basis, whenever they kind of need me to fill in.
Yep.
I also do other production work for them as well when they ask me to. Ohio State University, fill in, do a lot of different things. We mentioned hockey, I think, before we came on the air. I'll be back doing some hockey this year. Don't know about basketball just yet. I did men's basketball last year and men's lacrosse.
Hmm.
Uh, there's some schedule conflicts, but we'll try to work all that out later.
Yep.
And then, gosh, who else am I forgetting? A Flying Pig Marathon in Cincinnati every year. I announce that all weekend. Columbus Clippers, can't forget them. The Clippers, I work there all
Oh, yeah.
summer long, where I do a little bit of PA announcing with my buddy Big Matt, but I'm mostly
Gotta love
audio and
him.
DJ. So, like when you come to the ballpark and you hear all the walk up stuff, I just continue to do that with the Clippers, like I did with the Reds for 9 seasons. Blue Jackets, I actually had just started a new job with them, working for the National Hockey League. I introduced myself as NHL official Nick Wiget because I work for the National Hockey League now, and I do what's called the arena tech coordinator and the video tech coordinator positions. So when, let's say, a play happens, the referees on the ice don't know what happens. They go to the off ice officials. They're going to ask, okay, can we see the replay? There's 12 cameras all around the arena. We bring them up on screens and slow mo and zoom in and all that stuff. Run the Hawkeye
Mhm.
system, as they call it. I'm one of the guys that sets that up and also operates it during the games. So I'm
Yep.
there for most of the home games for that. And there's a couple gentlemen that fill in on that too. Trying to think. I did PA work for the Pirates in Pittsburgh last year. So there's that rivalry thing. The Pittsburgh Pirates
Yeah.
called, hey man, cool. PNC Park is gorgeous. That's an awesome
Absolutely.
opportunity. Yep, went over and did that. I think I'm close to a bit. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
forgetting something, but
So when you're doing PA, going from sport to sport, do
mhm.
you find that the way that you talk or call games changes? Are you a little bit more subdued when you do football and baseball versus when you do basketball and hockey? Or are
Yes.
you pretty consistent with how you do your
Yeah,
stuff?
there's definitely a difference in, like, the cadence of it, like, baseball is definitely one of those where you're speaking a lot more and you don't have to like, well, okay, let's say when I worked for the Globetrotters, it was about yelling. And
Oh, yeah.
you're
I mean,
into
that's a
in you're
show.
in
That's
show,
what it is.
NBA
It's a show.
basketball show, yeah. So, like,
Yes.
every play was about, screaming out the name of the player and the world
Yep.
famous Harlem Globetrotters, all the time with that
Yep.
sort of stuff. Over the top. Baseball can't be that way, right? I mean, not every batter is a huge deal or whatever every single time.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean we don't emphasize the home team versus the away team, like
Oh,
every
for
team
sure.
does. But
Yeah.
yeah, you can't turn it up to 11 and keep it at 11, right? It has to be certain key moments, maybe a little bit more. Football is a little bit of the same way. It's 3 hours, 3.5 hours of you got to pace yourself a little bit. Soccer, soccer more so. You get more excited because you don't have to say very much during a game, and if you do, it's usually a goal or something exciting happens.
Mhm.
So there's
Yeah.
that. Um, I think a lot of what I've done or what I do when it comes to how I call different sports, I've kind of stolen it from the other people that I've always liked or I've heard do it. So I'm not.
Yeah.
I won't lie. At the Reds, Joe Zerhusen, I've known Joe for years. I like the way Joe does a lot of stuff. I think my baseball call's a lot like Joe's. I think my football call is a lot like Tom Kender's because I'm sitting right away down the way from Tom, and I've told him I said I probably steal your stick. Like hope you don't mind because I'm also I admire what you do. Maybe I put a little twist on it. Greg Murray the
Mhm.
same way at the Blue Jackets. When I do hockey for Ohio State, I use the same terms and like the same kind of cadence he does when I announce those goals and those penalties and everything like that and power plays. I mean,
Yeah.
shoot, I caught myself last year almost saying Jackets on the power play instead of Buckeyes because I was talking to two of my coworkers about working at the Jackets. Then there's a
Yeah.
penalty. In my mind, I was just talking about the Jackets. So I
Yeah.
caught myself and I'm like, oh, thank goodness I didn't yell at Jackets on the power play. That'd have been awkward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, every sport's got its different kind of, way of doing it. But a lot of what I do, I've just stolen from other people. That's that
I mean, that's how it
that
goes.
sounds like
Um,
borrowed. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery.
and you knew Bob, so you'll get a kick out of this. I was talking to working in the booth with Tom Snyder up with Ohio State now, the new PA announcer there.
That has to be very different
He
than Bob.
Oh my, it's night and day.
Yes.
But I mean, he's doing a great job, but nobody can ever be Bob,
No.
and you know that. But it was funny because we were talking, what are some of what were his football calls that he did, that maybe we can try and work into this. And so it's funny, we'll be watching warm-ups and you'll hear him up in the top level just watching him. Just Mike's not on, but you'll just hear Marvin Harrison Jr.
Right.
Or one of those.
Heads
And
up, Buckeye
yeah,
fans.
oh
You're
yeah,
just doing it.
t-shirts.
Yeah, t-shirt.
But yeah,
Oh, we do it at the
so
Clippers all the time.
he's implementing the first and goal where he'll hold that first for a while, first and goal, like he'll
Oh,
hold it there
yeah.
for a while. But it's funny, like you said, people they just get they rip other guys off, but at the end of the day, you know what, it's an honor to get, if you're known well
Yes.
enough and you do a good enough job, that's an honor
Correct,
to be
yeah,
ripped off.
and that's one of those
It,
things I joked with Bob. I said, "Well, everyone does a Bob impression," but
oh yeah,
we did that before Bob passed. I mean, we
yeah,
did that
oh
to
yeah,
Bob's
that's
face.
the thing, like, yeah,
Like,
and he loved it.
oh, yeah. Yeah, he was always
That's
into
the
it,
thing.
like, that I don't know if I've ever told you my favorite Bob story that, we were
Oh,
both work
I'm all here, I'm here for
this
it
is a
though.
good one. We were working at the Clippers together, and I'd never met Bob really at this point. I knew who he was, but just in
Yeah.
passing. So I come in one day and I'm expecting Matt to be there, and Bob's sitting there in the PA chair, and I go, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." He's like, "Oh, nice to finally meet you. Heard all about you." And I knew kind of how his shtick. I knew what he does. So anyway, Larry, our producer, comes in and goes, "All right, guys, play it straight today." He says, the manager or whatever was ticked off about something and didn't like the way we did something. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. So at any rate, I'm like going through, and I only worked there for like 2 weeks at this point. And in my head, I'm going, what did I do that wasn't playing it straight, man? Like, did I do something? I play like a weird song or something, like I'm just analyzing it like, man, well, I don't know what to do. And I said, Bob, do you know what he means by that? And Bob's like, nope. That's all he said, "Nope." And I thought, "Okay." And so anyway, we go through the starting lineup, and he gets to the very last name, and it's the manager, Chris Trimmey. And he goes, "And your Clippers manager is Chris Tremmy," and he says it real high like that. I went 2 seconds later, the door busts open. "Bob, I told you to play it straight. Tremmy hates when you say his name like that." And I look around and I look at Bob, the door shuts, and I go, "Did you know he was talking to you?" And Bob goes, "Oh, yeah." And just looks down, "Oh, yeah, baby."
That's
Yeah, and
incredible.
I said, "You can't change, can you? You cannot do it any nope, nope."
No,
And Larry and I,
no.
we talked about that right about the time Bob passed, and I mean, we were laughing so hard we were crying. And I said, I did not know Bob." I said, "But you're not gonna change him. Like, this is if you
Mm-mm.
accept him for what that is and know that that's how it's gonna go, or you didn't have Bob there." So,
Absolutely.
yeah, great
Yep.
great guy though, man. Loved him to death, literally. I mean,
Yeah.
like, loved the dude. I talked to him
Yeah.
a week before he passed, and,
I was
he sounded
I
terrible, and
was
I
working
knew it.
with him that
Yeah.
I was working with him that weekend. I worked with him Friday,
Yeah,
Saturday,
as
and
you
then
well
he
know,
finished up
yeah,
baseball on Sunday. So yeah.
yeah.
Um, so is there a sport that you like to call more than others, or do you have a favorite sport that you like to work, or are you just all over?
I don't know, I think I like the variety of things, like,
Yeah.
I don't I don't put any more, like, emphasis or anything like that on the notion of, "Oh, it's a big Bengals game with, like, 65,000 people versus, okay, it's a, college baseball game and there might be a few hundred." I kinda take them all in stride and kinda go I think the variety of the atmosphere and all that stuff, I love all of it, and, um, so no, I don't know, people say, "Well, what's your favorite thing to do?" And I go, I don't know. I'm always up the next one is always kinda my favorite. Like,
Yeah.
the next thing I
Yeah.
do, or if I'm trying something new, maybe for the first time in a new place or a new sport. I just did field hockey for the first time a couple weeks ago, and that was really
That's
cool.
a
Like, I didn't know a lot about the
different sport.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I
I've
was like
I've been working a couple of those games as well.
yeah, and I watched a little bit, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. Swimming and diving was another one that was like really interesting to me, only because as I'm sitting there, I think to myself, this is the Olympics, right? I'm at the Olympic trials or something. Like that's in my mind, I'm going to make it
Yeah.
like we're at the Olympics. So that was kind of cool. Um, but yeah, not little things like this year, UC joining the Big 12, being
Mhm.
there for the big game when they played Oklahoma last week and
Yep.
going like, "This is pretty neat, man." Like, this is
With their great starting quarterback.
yeah, and, you sit there and go like, "This is kinda crazy," or you're like, "Okay, this is
Yeah.
fun." Being around the Bengals and FC Cincinnati at a time when they've had a lot of success. I worked for the Clippers in years when they've won championships. That's fun to It's fun to watch them do well and watch the fans get into it. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know, like, I'm not really a favorite, like, everything's kinda I feel like if I didn't do it all, I would miss something. Like,
Mhm.
man, if I
Yeah,
don't get to be a part of that, I'm missing out.
absolutely. So, we talked about, is there anybody you kinda look up to when you're creating your calls, and you kinda went through all your people there.
Oh, I steal stuff from
Do you have
everybody.
do you
I'm not original
I
in
know
the
I did
least bit. I don't know if that's
I
true or
did I
not, but
did I did some Ohio State baseball last season, and I texted, Big Matt, and I was like, "Hey, is it cool if I take some of your
I'm
stuff?"
just
He's
stealing
like,
your
"Go for
stick.
it."
It's okay, yes.
Yeah.
Do it the way he did it.
Do you have do you have what people would call your signature call? Do you have anything like
No,
that, or
no, not really. It's weird in PA announcing, unless you're Bob, you can't get away with that stuff, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like a lot of what I do is very scripted, which it
Yep.
is. Matt will
Yeah.
tell you, Big Matt will say our job is to be a good reader. If you
Yeah.
can read well,
Yeah.
man, that's 90% of the job, right?
Absolutely.
But like, no, not really. I always take pride in the fact when I was working an FC Cincinnati game a few weeks ago, and one of the security guys walks up to me and says, "Hey, you did a really good job the other day at the Bengals." And I said, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate that." He goes, "Yeah, I never put two and two together until I was sitting there with my wife, and she said something like, 'Hey, that's the FC Cincinnati guy.'" And I was like, "Yeah, I do both." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." He says, "Well, we didn't know that. Like, that's really cool." Or I did an event for FC Cincinnati a couple weeks ago now, where it was like a season ticket members got to come into the stadium and meet some of the team and stuff. And
Yeah.
I was hosting it. And so for the first time, I'm outside of the box with a handheld microphone. People are talking. I'm talking to them. Then people came down to me later and they're like, "Hey, it's nice to finally meet you and put a face with the voice or whatever." Like one lady goes,
Yeah.
"You're not how I had you pictured." And I didn't even
Not
ask. I thought, "Oh, I don't know how she had me pictured." But I said,
not to
"Okay." And she goes, "No, it's great." She goes, "I love it." And she goes, "Now when I come, I'm going to be able to go, oh, that's Nick, and that's what he looks like, and he's over here in the corner." Yeah. I said, "Well, look up
yeah,
and wave, and I'll wave back."
yeah.
So like, I like
And
that sort of stuff. Yeah, I like interacting
not
with
to
the fans.
dwell too much on Bob, but it's just the same thing from that news story he did, where he
Yes.
said, I've been doing it for 25 years, and a lot of people are seeing me for the first time, and I'm sorry,
And that's
um,
that. I'm sorry.
but
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
Well, I did the thing at the season ticket thing where I was like, we had one of the players there, and everyone can come down and get autographs. And I said, "Any questions for the player?" And they were like, "Oh, tons of questions." I said, "Who wants to know more about PA announcing?" And it was dead silent. And I was like, "All right then." And people were laughing. Then they're like, "Oh, he thinks he's like a comedian." And I was like, "Yeah, if anyone wants to come down and say hi to me, that'd be great. Come on down and
Yeah,
I'll take a picture with your kid. I mean, come on, man.
sign some
Yeah.
autographs.
Well, then I told the story too about with the Globetrotters. They said, "Have you ever signed autographs?" And I go, "Yes." With the Globetrotters, they would come over every once in a while because at the end of the games, there we'd have an autograph line around the basketball court,
Yeah,
and the lines would be like enormously long sometimes, only like 20 minutes for the autograph session. So a couple times people came over to me and they're like, "Hey, can we get the announcer's autograph?" And this one time a guy walks over and goes, "Yeah," says, "I told my kids we were out waiting in line for all those other people. Just go over there and say hi to the announcer. He doesn't have a line." Thank you.
that's awesome.
Or I came
You needed to you should have printed off your own little sign and just put it in front of you.
yeah, it's please come say hi. Or the
Yeah.
Clippers one time I walked out and there's always people outside there getting autographs into from the players. And this little girl ran up to me and she goes, "Will you sign my baseball?" And this dad, I kid you not, goes, "That's not a baseball player. That guy's too fat." And I said, "Well, yeah, but there's fat ball players. All right. So like chill on
That's
that a little
incredible.
bit.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
You're not wrong, but I'll still sign your ball if you'd like me to. I'm trying to be
yeah,
nice to the kids." So
that's amazing.
yeah.
Is there a play that you called or a game that you called that you will never forget
Oh, there's a lot of
for
them.
whatever reason? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. I a couple of them here in the recent last year or so. I announced a game in Pittsburgh for the Pirates last year that was Albert Pujols' ever last regular season at bat.
Wow.
So that, and I didn't know that at the time. It just turned out to be that way. They pulled him from the game, and I was like,
Yeah,
"They're pulling Albert," which means I just announced his last ever regular season at bat. That's kind
that's
of cool,
amazing.
man, because I was 20 or
Yeah,
whatever in college when he started. I've
yeah,
watched him play forever, and I was like, "That's kind of cool. That's a Hall of Famer." Another one
absolutely.
that's very recent was the Open Cup match at FC Cincinnati versus Inter Miami, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
recorded it because I knew the crowd is going to react when I say Lionel Messi. And as soon as I said, in the starting lineup, forward number 10, Lionel Messi, oh my gosh. The weird kind of applause and maybe a couple boos, but just the oh sound from the crowd. You know that when you're announcing an opposing team player and you get that sort of reaction, that's a big deal. That guy's a big deal or something, right? And there's been a few of those. Wayne Rooney got it a little bit, a couple other players, but man, Messi, yeah, that's that. He might be. I can't think of anybody more famous that I've ever announced,
So,
globally than Messi, and that just happened here
yeah.
a couple months ago. But it was, yeah, that was pretty wild.
So, you mentioned you have a son. What is what is a person's typical reaction to finding out what it is that you do? And then to go off of that, does your family ever attend games that you work?
Yeah,
And
yes.
what does your son think of all this?
Okay, a couple things. One is usually I have to explain to people multiple times what it is that I do because they go,
Yeah.
"Wait, are you on the radio?" I go, "No." "Are
No.
you on TV?" "No." "I thought you said you were the announcer." "Yeah, I'm in the stadium." And they go, "What stadium?" I mean, I get questions like that. I go, "The stadium they're playing in,"
Yeah.
when someone comes in and they introduce the team and all that, then they go, "Oh yeah, 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 okay, that guy." And they're like, "Is that a real job?" I get that question and I go, "Well, I guess not." Uh, or I'll say I work in production and I push a button for
Yeah.
somebody. They go,
Yeah.
"Well, we don't even know what that really is." "Yeah, I know, but if you were watching the show on TV, I probably played a replay or something for you and you didn't even know it. So yes, there's that. I do get those questions every once in a while, and occasionally, on grand occasion, you'll get somebody that does like the security guard did, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I know who you are. Oh yeah, of course I've heard you a
Mhm.
hundred times or whatever." So occasionally you get that. And I wouldn't, it's not like a level of fame. It's almost like a level of like realization of, oh, okay, you're that guy. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Um, my family, yes, they don't come a lot actually because Will's only 3 and his
Okay.
attention span is probably pretty low. He likes coming to the Clippers in particular because he can come get his pizza, his ice cream, come in the room, say hi to us, and then leave. He doesn't care about the
Yeah.
game really. That's cool that there's something happening. It's cool that Dada is doing something, whatever. But that being said, he's also very quick at 3 years old to grab any microphones we have around the house, and he'll just yell out like basketball, or he came to the NCAA tournament last year over in Dayton. I did the first 4 like practice sessions, so people
Yeah.
could come in for free, and watch the teams practice, and I'd introduce them and all that sort of stuff. He jumped down to the table with me, grabbed the wireless microphone, and went like, "Goal!" He knows exactly what Dad does, and he's
That's
like,
cool.
"This is cool, man. Like, there's bands here, there's noise, there's cheerleaders. Like, look at all the tall dudes shooting the basketball." Like, you could tell he was kind of like mesmerized by all that. Then
Yeah.
he started preschool here a little over a month ago, and on his, they asked him, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be an
Mhm.
artist or an announcer."
That's
Okay.
awesome.
Like he
Yeah.
fully understands that that's a thing. I can do that.
Cool.
I can announce. So yeah, I mean, yeah, they come to games occasionally, but they don't stay long because, like I said, his and I yeah, I get it, man. His interest is food and like seeing everybody. Then it's all right.
Same.
Yeah, that's cool. Time to go home now, right? Yep, that was fun.
Same.
Yeah, they had pizza. It was great. You know,
Yeah. Until the game starts, that's my interest too.
my dad's the same
So
way though too. I've taken my dad. My dad had a stroke in 2015, in a wheelchair. This is not a joke. I don't take him as much now. He's in a nursing home, but back when he was still at home, we went to a Reds
Mhm.
game, a couple of them, and I'd go in a little early and get him like popcorn and drinks and stuff, bring it back to him. He finished his popcorn, then he says, "Is the game over?" And I said, "It's the bottom of the first." "Oh, can we leave?" "Yeah, we can
Gotta
leave."
love
"Yeah,
priorities.
okay, yeah." You're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, are you done?" "Yeah, I think I'm done." "Okay." He heard the lineups, he saw a couple
Yeah.
people, he had some popcorn. He didn't care. So, yeah.
Cool. Um, so final question before we get into the just quick quick hitters
Yeah.
that we
Double
do for
jeopardy.
everybody. What does your game day routine look like? And we'll say since we're getting into hockey season, we're gonna say you're getting ready. You got a Blue Jackets game tonight.
Yeah.
What does your Blue Jackets game day routine look like?
Almost all of them start the same way. I live an hour away from Columbus and Cincinnati. I mean, I'm right in the middle. I'm in Wilmington, Ohio. So, almost all of them are get in the car and drive out to I-71 and decide which way I'm gonna turn. Right? So,
Make sure you go the right way.
yeah, that's half the battle right there. Like, get out there and
Yep.
go. Or if it's Dayton, just keep going straight on 68. So,
Yeah.
I gotta kinda decide there, like, "Oh, which way am I gonna go?" Drive about an hour, park the car, go in, do my thing. With the Blue Jackets, it depends on the day. Most of the time I get there anywhere between 2 and probably 4:30 for a 7 o'clock start, so I'm there fairly early. If it were a Bengals game, I'm there way early, like 1 o'clock, so we're there at 7 in the morning.
Mhm.
Get there, get prepared, make sure all the equipment works, depending on what my job is, or go through scripts. Kind of go make sure that all the dates and all the team names and all that stuff are correct. Because a lot of times it's easy to overlook that and go, "Oh, we left something in there that happened last week. Better get that out of there and change the date or whatever."
Mhm.
So there's that. When it comes to equipment, equipment's more finicky than you'd think. It's all computer stuff, and when it works it's brilliant, and when it doesn't it's a pain. And you've got
Yep. I had that a couple weeks ago.
yeah, right, you want to make sure before the fans get in there that that's the best time to be able to work on stuff, and to make sure that it's up and running, and once you get it going, leave it. Don't touch it until
Yeah.
you need it again. So there's that. Of course, that still only gets you up to like maybe a couple hours before game time. A lot of the places I work give us food, so we have dinner or something or lunch or whatever. Talk with some coworkers about some stuff, and then it's game time, man. And I mean, by the time the doors open, you're already on. So like, doors
Hmm.
open until 20 minutes post game usually. You don't get a lot of breaks in between there. So
Yeah.
that's another one of the things about working in sports is you have to be very focused even an hour and a half before kickoff or puck drop or whatever, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we're ready to go, do the game. That's pretty systematic at this point. I mean, I've done the jobs or, you know, PA and or anything else so many times that it's just push the button or say the spot or whatever. And then yeah, post game it's usually just kind of breaking some stuff down if we need to. We always appreciate if there's another game or event happening immediately like the next day or two because that means you don't have to strike a lot of equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
Camera operators understand that more than anybody because they have the
Oh, yeah.
worst of it, I think. And then just get ready for the next one. And so I'll come home, another hour drive home at least, not including traffic. If it's a if it's a Monday night football game,
Oh,
then you better add
I can
another hour and a
imagine.
half to that. So it's 2.5 hours
Yeah.
getting home. You get home 2 or 3 in the morning, get a little rest, get up the next day, hang out with my son, have some lunch, do whatever, and then get ready to go do the next one. And
Do
it's
it
the
all over
same thing
again.
all over again. Sometimes it's
So,
crazy. Sometimes it's like 7 games in 4 days, like it was about a week ago.
uh, I you always post your weekly schedule on Facebook.
That
That's
my
always
mother
pretty
wants to know
funny.
where I'm at.
It gives me anxiety. So that's all I got for you on kind of what it is that you do and what it is that you
Well,
do for
hopefully people
work and
can figure it
everything.
out from my babbling for the last hour that this is basically what I do, but there'll still be some people like,
Uh,
"Wait a minute, you do what? You're on the radio,
so yeah, so what exactly is it you do?
yeah, what's
Just
public
go
address?"
listen to it again.
They're like, "Well,
Go
you
listen to
know,
it again.
the loud person in the stadium." "Oh, that's you."
Yeah,
Well, not
yeah.
on everything, not on all the videos and stuff. On some of them. "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah,
Some of
sure,
them,
yeah."
yeah. So we have our power play questions, 4 questions that we ask everybody who comes on the show.
Mhm.
Um, First, what is your favorite sports venue that you have been to? Attended a game, whatever.
Oh, wow, that's tough. Favorite sports venue? See, I start to think of one, then I go, "Ah, there's one cooler than that." Um, right? I don't know,
Like you
oh,
said,
well,
traveling with the Globetrotters, I'm sure you saw.
let me tell you about that. Okay. It's not a sports venue. Yeah, we had a basketball game on the deck of the USS John C. Stennis in the middle of the Persian Gulf. I did the military
Oh,
tour. So we did a
that's
basketball
awesome.
game with a bunch of like, you know, fighter jets and pilots and sailors and everyone just sitting around on the wings of a plane in the middle of the morning. The game started, I think, at 7 a.m. their time. At one point, we were a few miles away from the Iranian coast, like in the it was crazy. Like, and I kept thinking, man, this one of these balls gets away, they're gone.
Yeah, it's
This ball's in the
yeah,
sea, it's gone.
yeah,
So like
yeah,
that was back in 2012. That was like November of 2012 or December, early December. We went on a military tour and went overseas, and we went to the Middle East and Afghanistan, and we toured all around all the different military bases there, and then we got to do the game out there on the John C. Stennis. That takes the cake from almost everything else I could ever think of, because
yeah,
to have the opportunity to play there with the troops or to even say like we're playing a basketball game in Afghanistan at Bagram Air Base. Man, that's
yeah,
weird, you know? Like most people don't come here for fun, and yet here we are having fun in Afghanistan. So
yeah,
like, yeah, that was pretty great. I started to say something like San Francisco, like the ballpark there. It's Oracle Park now, I think was
yeah,
AT&T. Man,
yep,
that's a beautiful place to watch a game or hang
yeah,
out. I've been there several times. Had a chance to tour the facility. That was awesome. Um, Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many different ones that like, and all, but honestly, and this is again me being total honesty. Um, I like Nationwide Arena as far as like arenas more so than almost every other arena we toured in. It's pretty nice, you know. Like
it is.
we have a
It
nice
really is.
facility. Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, another one that's just off the charts nice as far as NBA is concerned.
Mhm.
So we have some good facilities right around this area that like sometimes we don't realize it. We go, oh, up in Cleveland, Rocket Mortgage, the newly remodeled
Yeah.
Rocket
Oh,
Mortgage.
it's
Yeah, pretty nice
absolutely
place,
gorgeous up there.
compared to some of the other older arenas around the country. So
Yeah.
yeah, and again, I find little unique things about all of them that I kind of dig. So
Oh, yeah. Yep. Um, so you kinda answered the second one already, your favorite venue that you have worked or played in. I'm gonna go ahead and say that that was probably the aircraft
that was the
carrier.
aircraft carrier. Yeah.
Number 3, what is your favorite sports memory? This could be one you worked or something that happened when you were growing up and
Okay.
just or anything sports related, sports memory.
Yeah, this is gonna sound cliche and make me sound a little bit like a soft-hearted individual, but we were in Fairbanks, Alaska, with the Globetrotters, and we
Mm,
had a military homecoming, and it wasn't just a regular military homecoming. It was one of the soldiers that we met in Afghanistan, like a few months
that's
before
really
that.
cool. That's really
That
cool.
was pretty rad. Yeah, because it's like we're sitting there and I look over and I kinda see him off in the distance, and I'm like, "Is that Collins from the that's I know that guy." Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I know him, right? And then they were like, "Oh, by the way, he's back home with his family. They're stationed up here." They weren't from Alaska, but they were stationed there.
yeah,
And so anyway, long story short, at the halftime or whatever, we had like that moment of like returning from service, and then they didn't know it. Of course, it was a surprise, but it surprised all of us too, man. So like the emotion of that was really cool. As far as like major sports moments, man, anytime your home teams do something cool. I was in the stands
mhm,
when the Reds clinched the National League Central back in 2010. Like the moment everyone talks about Jay Bruce hit the first pitch home run and then everyone went
yep,
crazy. I was there for that. Um, I don't know. There's been a lot of different like major sports moments where I'm like, wow, I was in the stands for that. I can't believe it. Like, or to work with the Bengals when the season they're going to the Super Bowl. Wow, that's
yeah,
cool, man. My team just made it to the Super Bowl. Like, whoa,
yeah,
and especially after all the lean years that we'd had, man,
yeah.
that's crazy. Okay, man. Oh, I was at Joe Burrow's national championship game. I worked that in
Oh, wow.
Louisiana. So I've been to several national championship games and things like that, and get to see people celebrate that. So yeah, all those things are pretty cool. And there's so
That's
many, like
incredible.
just
Yeah,
they're almost mundane in a weird way, but it's like I look back on them now and go like, wow, I was there for that. So
yeah. So final question, if you could attend any sporting event, what would it be?
that's a great question. I think you probably well know this. I'm a wrestling nerd, pro wrestling.
Yeah,
Some people
yeah.
don't consider that necessarily to be sport per se. It's very athletic.
I couldn't do it, so I'm
I'm
gonna
sure I couldn't do it. Yeah.
I'll chalk it up as a sport.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I've been to several WrestleManias and big major events and things like that, so those are always fun for me, and it's something outside of the realm of what I normally do. Like, it's
Yeah.
still sport, but I've never really worked much in pro wrestling. Now, I did a little bit back 22, 23 years ago for a local promotion that was associated with WWE at the time. So that was really cool for me to be a part of that. But like that's still something that I can separate that as, I work in all these other sports. I've seen the curtain pulled back. Like I've seen the wizard. you know,
Mhm.
Whereas with wrestling, it's still something I'm not into professionally, so I still enjoy going to shows. So like this weekend I have off and I'm going to go to Indianapolis to WWE Fastlane because I just
That's
can't
awesome.
not go to wrestling shows. I just love it, love
Yeah.
being a part of it. Other than that, I think the Olympics would be like a bucket
Oh,
list
yeah.
thing. And I've talked about that
Absolutely.
several times, like and to work them too, maybe because I have several friends who do PA announcing and other production work that are like, you can do that. They need people all the time for different events and stuff. It's not as difficult as you might think to get in with the Olympic folks. And so I'm hopeful that maybe sometime in the future, my experience doing swimming and diving at a collegiate
Yeah.
level I might translate into like,
Like,
man, I really
yeah,
am at
get
the
you something
Olympics
else.
doing it now. This is really neat, like
Yeah.
so yeah, who knows? Down the road, my son gets older. Maybe he'll want to travel some with me, or I won't feel as bad if I have to leave for a couple days or something like that. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
maybe those
That'd
those
be
are the things.
awesome.
Yeah.
That was the final question I had.
Final question. There's nothing else that needs to be said about me, Dave.
Not at all. Covered it all.
Covered it all. I just hope that when people come to the events where I work, that they all have a good time. And like you said, there's plenty of people behind the scenes that you don't see that work very hard to make these things even more special. It's exciting to watch athletes on the field do their thing, and although we have no control over whether or not they do that well, it's exciting to watch that. But everything else that happens around the stadiums or arenas and everything, there's people back there that's worked very hard creatively and otherwise to both make this happen on both a creative level and like a physical manifestation of it too. So yeah, I hope that everyone enjoys what we do, and if they have any comments or any suggestions for stuff too, please let people know. Let them know what you
Yeah.
think will make it for a better experience for everybody. We can't control parking or anything like that, maybe, but
Yeah, so
you know,
yeah, you can't
some
control
some of the things are
traffic
kind of
before
out of our hands, but
concerts and
yeah, you know what I
yeah,
mean. But like, or if the
yeah,
team comes out and they just, wow, that was really bad.
yeah.
But we can show some video or put some graphic up that's fun to try to counterbalance the fact that the team's losing 100 to nothing or something. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I hope everyone enjoys it, and if you have any interest in doing this sort of stuff, I can tell you that it's one of those things where if you pursue it and get maybe a degree in communication, which is a good start, it opens up a lot of doors. And then once you're in, working with one team and you work hard, people will ask you inevitably to come do something else. And so
Yeah.
that's how you amass that ridiculous, almost CV like resume that I put
Mhm,
together.
and I can't remember if it was you, it might have been Matt or somebody else. I asked, what can you tell, like, what advice do you have for me trying to get more events and all this stuff? And like I said, I can't remember who it was, but one of the answers was just say yes.
Yes,
Just keep saying yes,
be
and
available.
then,
Yeah.
be available, say yes, and be reliable, and you'll get it. So,
Yeah, and people will
um,
understand too that if you have another gig, that's
yeah,
one thing. But, it's like, "Well, I want my weekend off." Oh, there is no such thing in
yeah,
sports.
yeah,
There is no such thing as you won't get that holiday off. You'll have time
no, and I
off, it just won't be at the same time.
yeah, and personally, I'd rather be at a game on a weekend than
I'm
sitting
the
at home
same
doing
way,
nothing.
man,
So,
like, 4th of July, I'd rather be at a baseball game.
oh, 100%.
Thanksgiving rolls
Mhm,
around, we might have to work basketball, we may have to work hockey or something.
yeah.
New Year's Eve, hockey,
I
sure.
was gonna say New Year's Eve, put me at Nationwide.
Yeah, yeah, that's
You know?
okay. That's
So,
and if I can bring my family along too, there it is. There's the celebration.
yeah,
Cool.
yep,
We did
yep,
something unique. So yeah.
absolutely. So, Nick, I really appreciate it, man. I won't take up any more of your time.
Yeah,
If
anytime,
there's
Dave.
any social media or anything you want to plug in here, you're more than welcome to.
I have a website at nickwiget.com. It's not that fancy. I'm on all the social media platforms except for TikTok, but I'm pretty sure Big Matt's gonna get me on there eventually. Um, yeah, I'm on everything: LinkedIn, Instagram, X/Twitter,
Yeah,
Facebook. I Facebook more than anything. That's just kind of my thing.
yeah.
I'm old school in that, so I don't have MySpace or Friendster or anything. But
Now you're really getting
yeah,
dark. I know.
yeah, find me on ICQ. There's a reference.
Gotta. What's your AIM handle?
Yeah, that's
Your
my instant
AIM
messenger
username?
handle, yeah. Nice guy, Nick,
So,
that's what it's I don't know if that's it.
yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, man. Good luck getting into hockey season
Thank
here,
you, I'll
and
see you down the road, man.
congrats on making it through another baseball season.
Hey, that's the grind, I appreciate that. I'll see you
Absolutely.
sometime sooner than later.
Oh yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on another episode of Into the Stands, the podcast where I unravel the fascinating tales of sports and entertainment personalities. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. A big shout out to our friends over at Around the Fifth Line. It's a Blue Jackets based debate show that you can catch on YouTube as well as on all podcast platforms. If you're craving in depth discussions about the game, they've got you covered. And for the latest hockey news and news focused on the Blue Jackets, head over to thn.com/Columbus, home of the Hockey News Columbus, with articles written by Jason Newland. Stay in the loop with the freshest insights and updates. Follow Jason on Twitter at F1RETheCannon for even more hockey goodness. Connect with us on social media. Follow me personally at The Scoreboard Guy, SCRBRD, and at Into the Stands for the latest on upcoming guests and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our community, so drop us a message and suggest guests for future episodes. As we wrap up today's show, let's remember the wise words of both Wayne Gretzky and Michael Scott. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Until next time, this has been the Scoreboard Guy. Dave Fetzer, thank you for listening.